Yes, we need board members desperately. I want to see this organization go forward and just really expand. If you're interested in anything with IP, please just either come up to me or you can email me. It's very easy, genbro at mail.regent.edu. I know that right now Jeff has agreed to continue on as our executive VP. We have one individual who said that he might be interested in taking on the position of president, but I haven't gotten a total confirm. But we still need a VP of IP, a VP of Entertainment and Sports Law, and also a secretary and treasurer. And we have combined that in the past, which Mr. Antoine Williams has been so graciously just wonderful in that position. So please think about it and let me know. Now, for our wonderful guest, Mr. Giodarno is an associate at Vandeventer Black. His practice includes a wide range of legal specialties, including construction and government contracts, general litigation, and, of course, sports law. He has experience in representing contractors, insurance companies, and sureties in a wide range of construction-related disputes. With regard to government contracts, he has provided advice to clients on bid protests, claims preparation, negotiation, mediation, and litigation. He is also well versed in the ever-growing field of sports law, and he is able to provide counsel to clients concerning legal issues that arise in amateur, collegiate, and professional athletics. Mike is an active member of the Sports Lawyers Association, the American Bar Association's Forum Committee on the Entertainment and Sports Industries, and the Norfolk Sports Club. He received his BA from Virginia Tech, where he has also received a minor in leadership for his graduation from the Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets. He also received his JD from the University of Richmond School of Law, where he served as an articles and comments editor for the University of Richmond Law Review. Prior to joining Vandeventer Black, he served on active duty in the United States Navy as a surface warfare officer, where he gained unique training experiences and insights for working with people in solving complex problems. And if you will please join me in welcoming Mr. Giodarno.
Thanks, everyone. I want to thank Jennifer and the Intellectual Property and Entertainment Law Society for asking me to come and talk to you today, and also for that warm introduction. As you can tell, I do a lot of other things other than sports law, and we'll get into sort of why I do that, but I'm not going to talk about government contracts and construction. We're going to talk about sports law today and sort of my interest and my efforts to grow a niche practice in that area as a young associate at a new firm, which a lot of you may be when you graduate from law school. I graduated from Virginia Tech in 2004, went active duty in the Navy for 4 years, got out, went to law school at Richmond. I'm a 2011 grad, so I've only been practicing for about 2.5 years. Sports has always been a passion of mine. Ever since I was a little kid, that's all I really loved to do was watch sports on TV, play sports, athletics, played varsity sports in high school. Chose not to do it in college because I wanted to go to a big school, and I was lucky enough to have the Navy pay my way. But it's something that's really interested me and I'm passionate about. I did do some sports law activities at the University of Richmond and took some courses. And then I was lucky enough to land a good job at a firm here in town, Vandeventer Black, that does construction, maritime, labor, business, and anything but sports law. Because unless you're really lucky to be from a really highly ranked law school, and you happen to find a way into one of these big firms in New York or DC or LA that does sports law, you've got to sort of start from somewhere. And that's what I'm going to talk to you guys today about, is my efforts, what I've done so far, and where they're going, where I see my practice heading. If anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to raise your hand. This is going to be an informal discussion, and I'd love to make it sort of a back and forth if you have anything, so just let me know. So my practice with regard to sports. So I started 2.5 years ago. I didn't have any clients. I didn't have any idea what I was going to do. And I think where it all starts is you have to research your market. So I'm in Norfolk Hampton Roads. Now, we don't have a major league professional franchise. We have 2 minor league franchises. We have a lot of sports activities that are both amateur and collegiate in the area. So what I did was I sat down and did a lot of research. Who's here locally? Who do I know within the industry, or who do I need to meet and know in order to make those connections, to get our name out? And how can I put together a plan that I can then send to my managing partner in my firm and say, by the way, I know I've got all of these matters I'm working on, but I've got this little idea that I think I can make work called a sports law practice. And will you maybe, the firm maybe give me some money and some time to go ahead and pursue this along with all the other stuff I have going on? So I had to be smart about it. So we identified some things, and I guess how many people knew that we had 2 Division I athletic conferences based in Hampton Roads, which are the MEAC and the Atlantic 10, which, hard to believe, is based out of Newport News. They don't have a Newport News team. You think Atlantic 10, I think the closest school might be VCU. We've got the Admirals, we've got the Tides. Made some connections with a group called the Hampton Roads Sports Commission. They're an affiliate of the Chamber of Commerce, and their sole purpose is to bring in amateur athletic events to the area to support the regional economy. The big one being the AAU Junior Olympics, which we get here on a rotating basis every 5 years. Identifying groups like those, race promoters, the Shamrock Marathon, which we just had, Rock and Roll Half Marathon. Those are put on by companies that happen, luckily, to be a firm client of the firm I'm at right now. So I go and talk to that partner, and I go and learn about that business. And you start to build connections and go out in the community and join things like the Norfolk Sports Club, which is a great organization of a lot of folks in older generations that are retired, but there's some younger folks also. They meet for bi-weekly luncheons, and they put on a jamboree every year, which this year is coming up March 31st. Steve Largent, former Seattle Seahawk and Hall of Famer, is going to be the keynote speaker, and they'll normally bring in folks from like Frank Beamer or Mike London and from around the state, and they'll give out awards to players. It's a really big deal every year. So I joined that club, and I start working in that club. And a real big key is trying to identify what clients you want to work for, what types of businesses you want to do. So my personal interest is not in being a sports agent. For many people in sports law, that's the most exciting thing. That's Jerry Maguire. That's what I want to do. It's very, very cutthroat. And the legal industry can be. There are firms competing for clients, but it's really to a much higher degree, in my own observation, in the sports agency world. And plus, with a legal background and not really being on the business side of things, it would take me more time to develop my skills in the other areas like marketing and sponsorship deals for players I wanted to represent. And finally, another detractor is the compensation really isn't that good. It's capped in the NFL at 3%. And as a new agent, if I were to become one, I'm not going to go out and land Teddy Bridgewater as my first client. I'm going to land the guy who's going to be the undrafted safety out of Norfolk State, maybe, who's not going to make more than the league minimum if he's lucky enough to make the team. But there are other people competing for that guy too, and they're willing to put up $10,000 so he can go to do special training for the combine or for the NFL draft. So looking at all those factors, I said, I want to represent businesses and individuals involved in sports in the industry. That's going to be my niche. I'm going to be as smart as I can about the industry, the local industry here in Hampton Roads. I'm going to make connections. I'm going to go to lunches. I'm going to talk to people. And at the same time, I'm going to work in my firm on the actual legal matters I'm building up my own expertise in those areas, trying to combine the two. I think, Jennifer, correct me if I was wrong, I was referred to you by Joe Gregory, who's the general manager of the Norfolk Admirals and Tides. We pushed the issue. We called the Admirals. Our firm has been a sponsor of them in the past, and got a meeting and you talked to them for a little while. And I had a recent matter that I handled for the Norfolk Admirals, so that was good. That was a startup. I mentioned the Hampton Roads Sports Commission. We targeted them, we talked to them, became very good friends with the executive director and their marketing sponsor. Volunteered for anything we could do for them and got appointed, and I'm now a board member of the Sports Commission. They're thinking of bringing in more events like the Ironman Triathlon, other events like that, and we've got some business now where I've been engaged to help the Sports Commission with their contracts and relationships. And this is just sort of how you want to get your ball rolling if you are interested in a practice like that. Now, show of hands, who here is actually interested in sports law as maybe a practice area? Some folks here. I know this is IP entertainment too, so I guess there could be a mix. Are you interested, Antoine, in agency or representing business clients? What are your particular interests?
Based off my initial research, it would probably be more agency, like looking at ways to develop like merchandising opportunities for like maybe one of the leagues.
Sure.
As opposed to
Yeah, there are a lot of good legal jobs out there. You mentioned leagues, and in-house counsel, I think, is a really good opportunity. And I think it was in my bio. There's an organization called the Sports Lawyers Association. Has anyone heard of that organization before? It's really the national association for lawyers that are involved in the sports industry. And I think they do a student membership. I'm not quite sure, but if you're really serious, I think that is a vital membership because with your membership, you get free access to a publication called the Sports Business Daily and the Sports Business Journal. I get an email every day of 10 headlines that you really wouldn't see if you're just combing the news that are just about the sports industry, news related to topics like Major League Baseball is now teaming up with Match.com to try to match couples that have the same favorite baseball team, right? And they've signed a deal, and that was yesterday's news. So you'd never find that if you weren't getting those emails. Or it's a great resource, and the point of it is you really have to know the industry. You have to know what's going on. You have to be able to, for instance, one of the things I did before I got any work from Joe Gregory was I had met him for lunch one time, and then I found out on Sports Business Daily that a AAA baseball team in Lehigh, Pennsylvania, was going to install some sort of, I forget what it was now, some entertainment device in the restrooms in men's urinals, and just shot him an email and said, "You see this? I heard it was crazy." And he responds back, and you develop a relationship like that. But it's part of knowing what's going on in the industry and knowing who your clients are, and also just developing yourself, because there are really two sides as an attorney. It's how do I become a good lawyer, and how do I become someone who brings value because I know your business, I know your company, and I know just what's going on locally and nationally. So that's really my targeted practice. And like I said, we've had some success. We've been growing. I am very fortunate to be in the firm I'm in. We've got 40 attorneys in Norfolk. We've got about 65 attorneys in total. So it's a pretty good sized firm with a decent client base. And I'm working with great people who have said, your plan looks good. We're not going to give you a lot of money, but here's a little bit. You want to take some people out to lunches and join some organizations. It doesn't have to come out of your pocket. We'll go ahead and do that. And it's starting to pay off a little bit, and they understand that investment is going to work. So I also mentioned I'm happy to talk about any questions you have about hot topics in sports law right now, things that are going on. Yes, Jennifer?
I wanted to get your input on the idea of collegiate athletes going into the union.
This is something, I'm glad you brought that up. The NCAA is one of the biggest villains out there for a lot of people right now, and I kind of feel that way as well. The Hampton Roads Sports Commission every year does a rec forum, recruiting eligibility and compliance forum. They just did their second annual one for local student athletes who are going to be trying to play athletics in college. And I presented at that, and not presented, I had a booth and presented some information to folks who walk by about sort of the rights of the student athlete. And if you look at it in my mind, I think that your Division I athletes are really exploited financially, particularly in men's basketball and football, where those are huge revenue generating sports, and all of the money is going to the universities. None of it is going to the players who suffer injuries, who really have to spend a lot of time at practice and working out and learning the playbook and everything like that. And so there are several cases out there right now, the O'Bannon one being the most known, where Ed O'Bannon, former college basketball player at UCLA, has sued the NCAA and EA Sports because he had been, he looked at a video game years after he graduated, and they had his 95 UCLA team, and he looked and, wow, that's my number, and that guy looks exactly like me, and you're selling that, and you're making money off of it, and I don't get to see a single dime because whenever I signed my letter of intent, I also signed away all of my rights to my likeness. And he said, well, wait, that's not fair. And it's now grown into, I think, a class action suit where they've brought in former players, current players, and then you have the situation in Northwestern where the Northwestern football team got together and has now petitioned the National Labor Relations Board to unionize as players against Northwestern University, the NCAA, and Big Ten. And I haven't really caught up on where that's going. I think they've had a hearing or so, and I don't really know what's going on with that. Yes, sir.
Are you at all concerned about the intersection of the entertainment aspect with the more traditional intellectual property aspect? Because a argument that this basketball player might hear is quite apart from signing away any right to his likeness. He hasn't gotten any right to his likeness to sign away at all. So he's presupposing that he has some sort of a trademark or right of publicity or persona. Are you curious about how these things might sort out? It sounds like you're at the cutting edge of some interesting intersections.
Absolutely, and one of my weaknesses as far as my knowledge is the IP side of things. I really haven't gotten involved in it, and unfortunately I can't speak with personal knowledge and research that I've done on it, but that's absolutely a concern. And I think it really cuts to the core, and what the legal commentators are saying this case could do if it's decided against the NCAA is it could really just change the entire NCAA system, where now schools would have to compensate players in some way. Another thing that you actually, another requirement by the National Letter of Intent is athletes are not allowed to sign endorsement deals. They're not allowed to make money off of their name. It would make them ineligible. So it's more of an NCAA rules violation, I think. And if I'm one of these college basketball freshmen, we'll take a guy like Andrew Wiggins at Kansas right now, who's a consensus top 5 pick in the NBA, and who would never go to college if he could have gone straight to the NBA, which is actually an NBA rule. But he could endorse folks right now, would pay a lot of money, like Nike for his shoes or Gatorade maybe, and so those athletes are missing out. And Kansas in the NCAA right now, with its multi-billion-dollar deal for March Madness, is making a lot of money when Andrew Wiggins goes on the floor and slam dunks that ball down. So there's really a good argument, I think. But there's another side to it too. There are a lot of schools. I would take like an Old Dominion or a Norfolk State, for example, who are Division I schools, maybe don't have those marquee athletes. Well, if the standards are the same, that really puts a lot of stress on schools like that and their budget financially. Well, we're already providing them free college and cost of education, but now we have to pay a stipend possibly, or we have to pay a wage if the Northwestern players succeed. So it really gets interesting. I do know there's a movement being made by the 5 or 6 larger Division I conference, and they're making some headway for some separate NCAA rules governing men's basketball and football that would allow them to increase the money that goes to college athletes. Right now, it doesn't actually cost the scholarship doesn't cover the true cost of the college education. Things like the cost of the apartment and housing, cost of tuition, or not tuition, books and fees, and some other things aren't covered. There's usually about a $5,000 or $6,000 gap, which is tough when you have a lot of athletes coming from poorer backgrounds or poorer families who can't afford that sort of thing.
With that, if it's just the NCAA or with football, isn't it going to have to then start being that all college athletes are going to have to be part of the union? Because then you're starting to bias against women's sports or other sports. And then you're going into that whole thing, because I used to be a cheerleader and a cheerleading coach.
Sure.
And of course, they don't think that is necessarily a sport, but they also do athletic competitions. So where does this end? Because it seems like it's going to be a constant mess.
And that seems to be the strongest, or I should say the most common argument in response is, what about the whole system? We can't change everything. And you bring up some great arguments, and I think there are a lot of folks who are maybe can get in a room that are hopefully a lot smarter than I am and can try to figure that out, because there really are some inequities. But you bring up like Title IX is a great example, because it basically says, school, you have to spend the same amount of money for men's athletics as you do for women's athletics. Well, football, with its 100 scholarships and equipment, really has caused a lot of other schools to drop things like men's wrestling or even baseball, because they need to spend that money over in the women's sports. And I don't disagree with Title IX at all. It's just a fact of another complicating factor that would go on with college athletics. Now, unfortunately, it's not easy to find clients and I've offered my representation and services to some families and some folks for college athletes, but it's funny, you can't really hire a lawyer to negotiate with your prospective college, because then you're pseudo hiring an agent, which makes you ineligible. It's really one-sided. It's really a contract of adhesion, this national letter of intent that you have to sign, which, by the way, is only a 1-year contract. It's not 4 years. It's just crazy. And students don't know that stuff, so we try to get the word out to them. And that's just one of many. What are some other legal issues? I think those are really the hot topics. You always see athletes getting into trouble, which isn't really sports law. That's just criminal law for members of the sports industry. That's not really an interest of mine, but of course, if you had a client, if you had an individual you were representing, you could refer and find co-counsel to work with that.
So as far as services that you can offer for being sports law, so if you're not necessarily focused completely on being like an agent of an athlete, besides like maybe consulting with high school students going into college, educating them, what are some kind of services that you can offer to, like you mentioned some of the businesses, some of the connections that you're forging? What kind of legal services that intersect with sports are you looking to be able to provide?
Me personally, in my practice, it's legal business advice for persons and companies in the sports industry. And that's going to do a lot of contract review and negotiations. It can deal with litigation. It can deal with just general employment advice and things like that. But it's knowing, so for instance, the Atlantic 10 and the MEAC, we've reached out to them. I'm fortunate, again, I'm very fortunate to be in the firm I'm in, because we do labor law, we do business law, we can do litigation, and then I just have to pitch myself as someone who knows the industry, and I can go ahead and talk to the in-house counsel for the Atlantic 10 and just bring up issues related to the NCAA, his conference. Oh, you've added some teams this year. How's that affecting your budget? Is that doing well? And oh, by the way, you've got a Newport News office, and I don't know, you may have a disgruntled employee there, or you may have, they have a lot of licensing and sponsorship agreements that they have to work through. Their conference tournament, I think, is in the Barclays Center. So constantly keeping in touch, letting them know we're there, letting them know that I know what's going on, developing that relationship. And it takes time. And so, one of the things I told Jennifer was I've been practicing a short time. My practice is in its infancy, but I'd love to talk to you about how I'm going about trying to grow it and some of the things that I've learned and that I've done that may be able to help you. And I think they translate to any legal specialty that you get into. The same things work in construction law, other types of entertainment law or IP in terms of knowing people and marketing yourself and client development. That's the long-winded answer to your question, but yeah.
You were talking about the injury side of it, and one of the things that I know a lot of people are talking about now is the football players who were trying to sue for their injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to get your aspect on that.
Yeah, the last I understand, there was like a $765 million settlement that was reached. I don't know if it was court approved yet. But just generally thinking about it, I think football players know, in particular in this instance, they know that there's a risk of injury. They accept that risk when they go on the field, or they just think they're invincible and don't care about it. I remember I played high school football, and I didn't care if I hit my head and was seeing stars for a little bit. But I think there were some arguments made and some evidence that the NFL knew it was worse. The head injuries in particular were worse than what the players were told. Now, the arguments were made, well, you're a football player. You know you're going to get hit in the head. And I don't know if the NFL thought that it would have become, that they would have had a judgment against them. I think they just thought if we can cut our losses and do the right thing and just offer this type of settlement, which is nothing compared to the amount of money the NFL is making right now, to be honest. That's my personal view about it. So. Some other things to think about, interesting things. It's a great article a couple months ago in the New York Times about ESPN and its connection to college football, and this again goes on the exploitation of the college football student athletes. As many of you may know, big football conferences have these huge multi-million-dollar deals with ESPN right now. And in signing those deals, ESPN was able to negotiate the right to move games around, teams around, different days, different times. When you see, Saturday night is the marquee game every week. If you watch that, well, it's not scheduled like that initially. And so ESPN has paid these conferences all that money for what amounts to a fairly cheap programming for them, right? They don't have to pay a lot in production. They don't have to pay a lot in actors, and they get huge revenue from that. So much so, I think almost $6 of every cable bill in the United States or DirecTV bill goes just for the ESPN family of companies, regardless if you watch a single minute of them. So again, a lot of that is coming on the backs of these football players who aren't seeing a penny of it. ESPN's benefiting. The schools and the conferences are benefiting. And I don't know, it's just sort of a side thing of mine that I've been very interested in and been following.
How much intersection is there between like the different areas? Well, you've got baseball, you've got basketball, football, hockey, soccer. So like, how hard is it for you when you're trying to develop this expertise, this knowledge base, to translate between like one sport to another sport? So if you're talking baseball versus going to hockey, are there some issues that you can talk about that regardless
Sure. There are definitely some differences in the sports and some things. They all have something in common. What I've found is for a lot of people, you can relate to a lot of people through sports, right? You find out where they went to college or where they grew up. You ask them about their favorite pro teams and you talk about the games. I'm a fan in general of all sports. I think football might be my favorite, but I can talk about basketball, I can talk about baseball, I can talk about golf, I can talk about tennis, Olympics, I can talk about anything that's on Sports Center enough to make you think I might know a little bit about it. But you're right, there are differences in the business aspects of them, for instance. But we're lucky here in town, like the Admirals and the Tides have the same ownership group and the same general manager. So the same issues sort of come up with same, but their player structures are entirely different. So in Major League Baseball, pretty much the Orioles pay the salaries for all of the Tides players. It's very structured as far as what players will be there. The GM of the Tides has virtually no player personnel decision-making authority. In hockey, that's different. The Anaheim Ducks are the NHL team for the Admirals, and half of the Admirals they were signed by the Admirals basically as free agents. It's very common, and the Admirals have more leeway in what they can do as far as sending people down further to a lower level and bringing people up, or bringing a guy off the street if they want to. And then the personalities are different. Hockey players and baseball players. Hockey players can be from Canada and Europe, and baseball players can be from the Dominican. And
kind of a follow-up to that then is the overall plan when you're developing one of these niche markets is if you're in a hub like this where you've got a lot of different sports teams going on, do you focus and obviously you focus to build your expertise in the area with the teams that you have, the connections that you have with businesses. So as you do that and you start to gain some of that recognition, do you look to expand outward from there? So if you get a call from someone in Georgia saying, hey, I heard good things about you from some of my buddies who play up there, can you offer some of your services? Do you go beyond the scope, or do you limit your market? How do you consider where you draw the line, or do you draw the line?
I think eventually, if the practice became that successful, I'd love to expand farther. It takes a lot of time to develop connections and experience and a real practice. And if you do good work in any area of the law, the word will spread and other people will just find you. That's what I've been told. I've only been in 2.5 years, but I've seen it a little bit myself, and I think that is definitely a goal. But in my mind, if I was going to start something here in Norfolk or Virginia Beach, I needed to work on clients here. I've been to the Sports Lawyers Association annual conference, and when I go and meet someone and they read my firm in Norfolk, Virginia, they're like, oh, what's in Norfolk, Virginia? Right? Because maybe it's a New York attorney, or it's someone in-house for the Seattle Mariners, and they're like, okay, I don't really know you, and we have a talk, and I educate them. Oh, we've got a minor league team. We do this and that, and eventually you grow, right? So maybe I get a client someday I provide legal services for a local athlete who moves on and goes and works in another state across the country, who's got another athlete who wants to fire somebody and hire somebody new, something like that. Absolutely.
I know that they were trying to get a sports complex here and bring in the Kings, I believe. So what are your thoughts on that happening? Do you think it's a good idea? And if somebody here graduates, wants to get their foot in the door, what would you suggest to get in on the ground floor with that particular plan?
Sure, I can tell you there's some updates there on, so the Kings obviously agreed to stay in Sacramento. I think the lesson learned by the folks in Virginia Beach was we need an arena before we'll be seriously considered. We can't say we'll build you an arena and make that a part of the decision-making process if a team is going to move. And I know right now there are 3 proposals, I think, to Virginia Beach from private entities to build an arena next to the convention center. And I think Virginia Beach is moving forward with a plan and will build an arena within the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years. I think there will be one there. I'm a fan of bringing a Major League sports team to this area. I was a little skeptical about the chances of success. I've got several reasons. One, I think it's a very transient area with people. I'm originally from Pittsburgh. I'm not from the area. A lot of folks are. Maybe they're already fans of another team. Another is the traffic situation here and just the geographical layout. So in that process, they kept comparing this area to Oklahoma City. And in doing that, they said, well, the Oklahoma City-Tulsa area, and they tried to analogize that to the Eastern Virginia, Richmond, Virginia Beach. And well, that's fine, but there's no huge body of water out in Oklahoma that cuts off, the way that you can get to the arena. And we don't have, I think, the corporate sponsorship base that we need to really support it, because that really drives a lot of revenues right now in your corporate suites and things like that. So I thought locating it all the way at the beach would mean no one from Richmond would casually say, let's go watch the Kings play the Milwaukee Bucks tonight, unless you had a team like Oklahoma City Thunder who came in and within a year or two were title contenders every year and have two of the best players in the league. And the Kings don't have that, and if a team is moving, they probably don't have that. So I was skeptical, but I do think there will be an arena, and I do think that they'll keep trying to get a team in, and I wouldn't be surprised if someday we do have one. Now, to get in on the ground floor, keep up to date on what's going on, and just talk to people. Virginia Beach Economic Development would probably be a great place to get in with them. Now, these companies that are proposing to build the arena, they're big companies. They have counsel, but it never hurts to get in and get known, express interest. There might be opportunities later on down the line for local law students to go and do, externships or internships and get their foot in that way.
One more question.
Sure.
A lot of people that I've been speaking to as far as going into the sports industry, they always say, oh, well, they already have in-house counsel. And I know that a lot of the time you have all the different players and you have all the different factors. So if you can't necessarily go into in-house counsel, or you can't necessarily afford to do the agency side because I know you have to put a lot of your own money into it, how do you, just on your own experience, just making the contacts aside, getting into the sponsorship side of it or in any other side of it, how do you necessarily just get in the game, basically?
You have to be willing to spend a lot of time researching what is around you, what is out there, who do I want to try to know. What I generally find is people are very willing to answer a phone call or an email if you just explain who you are. Hey, I'm Mike Giodarno. I'm an attorney in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm at this firm. I'm starting a sports law practice. I'm interested in this and this. I see you do this. Would you like to go to lunch someday? Or maybe we could set a time where I could pick your brain for 30 minutes over the phone, because they started somewhere, not where they currently are. Now, if you're trying to get the sponsorships and some of the ancillary things, you really you got to find the decision makers for the companies making the decision, or someone that can introduce you to them, and it's difficult to do. And trust me, I've pulled leads and looked everywhere, and sometimes you find a dead end, or like with the Atlantic 10, I had no idea they were there. I joined the Sports Lawyers Association. I'm looking at the directory of all the members and who's in Virginia, and I see there's this guy who's listed as in-house counsel for the Atlantic 10 and Newport News. great opportunity, and I just, I cold called him, left a voicemail, sent him an email. He called me back, we went and had lunch, and you slowly grow that way. And that's how you, regardless of what area of the law you get into, if you're starting from scratch, which I'm doing on the sports side. Now on the other side of things that I do, I'm not. I'm lucky enough to have partners that have done it for years, and they bring in the work, and I just, grind away at it and become a good lawyer by doing it. But the sports side of things, it's tough to get into a situation like that. And in this area, we didn't really have a practice area or practice group in any of the local firms who did that. So decided to try to start on my own. It's a lot easier. There are challenges, right? You could maybe hang your own shingle and try to do it. And it's not always easy in this market to get a good job at a good firm, and I totally understand that. I think I'm in a good position where my employment and my income is good, but I have to work extra time to try to start something on my own, so I'm sort of working twice at the same. It's a lot of hours, it's a lot of work, but again, I'm passionate about it. So I guess that'd be my concluding advice would find what you're passionate about and just keep working at it, and eventually, if you're smart and you're good at talking to people and getting to know them, you're going to do well, you're going to get work, and you're going to grow your own practice.
I lied, that wasn't my last question.
Okay.
I just thought of another one, a follow-up. In speaking to some of the people in the industry of sports, one of the things that I found is that it's a good old boys club, and it's very difficult sometimes for women to step foot into this industry. What advice do you give, and it's probably the same thing, about just getting past that barrier? Because I know that a couple of times I've tried to do the email, phone call thing, and I would not get a return email or phone call because I was a female. I'm just saying that, I don't know if that's
Sure.
true, but I've been told that sometimes it could be that way. So what do you advise?
It could be, it might just take persistence. I'm not in your shoes. I don't have that sort of hindrance being a male, but I do in that I didn't play college athletics. If I'm talking to someone at a conference and I'm in Norfolk, Virginia, and I'm talking to like the in-house counsel of the Pittsburgh Pirates, he's like, well, why am I going to spend 10 minutes of my time networking with this guy when I could be networking with many other people who are much more relevant to what I do on a daily basis. And I think it's persistence, trying to connect with people. And what I've really found that's helped me is knowing what's going on and being able to talk intelligently about it and leaving that impression with someone, right? If you're ready for that opportunity, right? I just so happen to be in an elevator with the person I want to talk to. Know what you know about that person, know about their company or their sport or something, and intelligently talk about it, and that will impress them, hopefully, and give you another chance at another meeting later on down the line to continue to grow it. So, any other questions from you guys? I've got business cards up here. Anybody who wants one can come grab one. If anyone has a question at any time about sports law, law in general, law school, anytime, just go ahead and shoot me an email anytime or give me a phone call. Leave that open to all of you.